There were two trains of thought with Jayson Tatum, and I would like to hear where you
Ooh.
stand.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a reaction you got there.
Yes, he knows this is going to be provocative.
Goodness.
So,
All right.
well, I think people can figure out what two streams you are planning to row here. So I think he should be buying every bit of merchandise from the juice store and thanking Jaylen Brown for making sure that game got to overtime. Because if he doesn't have a chance to sort of redeem himself, the last 48 hours are probably pretty tough on Tatum, and where there's a whole, condemnation on he can't hit the big shot and he just can't put the ball in his hands late in games and all that. Even though the numbers I've said in the past have been better in the postseason, but look, you redeem yourself. Recency bias. He had a great overtime. He helped you get to the finish line of the win. We can look past it a little bit. It's just going to still kind of linger. He can't be that off in the fourth quarter. He can't miss that wide open three with a chance to put you ahead. And he's got to be better. But Jaylen Brown saved them a little bit. And if you can win a game where Tatum is still less than efficient, and I feel like at some point this postseason he's going to turn it up a little bit. And if he's just saving it for the finals, we'll put that spin on it.
All right. Now, there's also two thoughts: is that was Indiana's chance to win and they blew it, or wow, Indiana's a lot better than people gave them credit for. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Like they are better than probably we gave them credit for, and you can see how daunting it is to try to just because they're so pesky, they keep coming back. They throw TJ McConnell in the game, and all of a sudden, here goes a little 8-0 burst, and they're right back in the game. And Siakam getting hot late. So I'll be interested to see tonight. Do the Celtics make the adjustments that make it a little bit more difficult in those scenarios? And they don't have necessarily the spurts. The one thing that concerns me is they turn the ball over a ton. They don't normally do that. I think if they play that game a little bit crisper, they probably win. They probably win pretty easily. So I do think the Celtics got to turn it up. It's weird because most teams respond negatively to that sort of loss, right? Like you lose and you're like, we had our chance. We could have stole it. We could have stole home court. And they sometimes never find their footing. But this team feels like so youthful and naive that I think they really can just kind of put it in the rearview mirror and go forward. I think back to last round against the Knicks, they let a very winnable game go, maybe the first two games, and I'm thinking, man, there's no chance they get this. And they kind of recovered. So there might be some benefit to being young and naive, and I wonder if that will serve them tonight. I still really like the Celtics tonight, which is weird in game two because they've sucked in game two, but we'll see if they can figure it out.
I want to talk to you more about what adjustments you think they might make tonight. But also, Chris, I think that was a good, balanced, nuanced assessment of Jayson Tatum in that game one, because it's ridiculous to say he was bad. He wasn't bad. He had 36 points. I mean, he led the offense for most of the game. But it's unacceptable for your best player or one of your two best to essentially not put a point on the board in the last 9 minutes and 42 seconds of regulation of a tight game like that. And I think it's reasonable to expect him just to do something other than, and I would push back a little bit on how awesome he was in overtime. Yeah, he had 10 points, but 5 were from the free throw line, and 3 of the remaining 5 were on a wide open 3. So I think it's reasonable to expect and want a little bit more of him down the stretch, especially in regulation.
The only other thing I would add on top of that is that his defense was really good. That sometimes gets lost in the shuffle.
Good, yes.
When we talk about all the best players. But yeah, look, if I always tell people, because people get mad when I have irrational expectations for Jayson Tatum, and I go back to it. It's not for me about the point total. Like I know we all obsessed about look, Luka's putting up 50 and Jalen Brunson's putting up all these 40-point games. I don't care, and I don't think Tatum does anymore. But he's got to impact winning, and he's got to be good in the best moments, the bigger moments. And whether that's fair or not, because Joe Mazzulla loves to push back and be like, the start of the game is just as important as the end of the game.
Right. And
that's obviously true, but we just put so much more of an emphasis on the end, and it's okay to do that. Like that's what sports are.
No. The end is more important than the beginning. And that's like a logical thing that he said, but there are runs in NBA games. I mean, Jesus, the Celtics were up 12-0 in the first quarter of that game. The beginning of the game doesn't matter nearly as much, especially in the NBA, which is in college it does. In college, if you're UConn and you get up by 20, it's over. But in the NBA, you get up by 20 and it doesn't mean anything. I mean, yeah, it's when time is running out. It's like the last 5 minutes of a game.
Yeah.
You know that.
It's not a season win total.
Yeah, don't you think? But Chris, just real quick, do you think that's fair that the beginning of the game counts as much as at the end of the game? Like in terms of
it's coach speak, right? Like
right.
the coach has to be balanced. The same way that he's like, it doesn't matter the 5 guys that start the game; it's the 5 guys that finish the game. It's like, yeah, but no, you're going to put your best players out there at the end of the game. And so, I understand like coaches have to duck around this stuff. And he's right. Like, look, if they're not terrible at the end of the third quarter, we don't even talk about the end of the fourth quarter because they just salt this game away and they win by double digits. But so it's all connected. But we know what it means. Like in those final 5 minutes, when it's a tight game, you either have players that step up and make plays, and Jaylen Brown did that, or you have players like the Pacers who crumbled. So, like, we're going to judge on that. That to me, those moments are magnified and are worth more than the start of the game.
And I think it's coach speak also to guard against and to remind them it's not okay to get off to a slow start because if it's slow enough, then it could impact the entire game. Go ahead, John.
I wanted to you brought it up earlier, Hardy, about adjustments.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how Al Horford has struggled in game 1 against the pick and roll, and Luke Cornett came in and things did not get any better. They got much worse. And we don't know the status of Xavier Tillman for tonight. What does Joe Mazzulla do with his big man rotation? Will we see small ball with Jayson Tatum at the 5 tonight?
I think it's inevitable in the series that you're going to have to get there. But yesterday, like Joe really got pestered with questions about it, and his whole thing was that it was more execution than personnel. And I think he said like something like it was probably 70% execution. And so I think you trot out the same 9 guys that you did at the start and see how it looks. And is your defense better? Are you handling those pick and rolls? Are you handling the switches? Are you making sure they're not getting the mismatches that they're trying to get? Like Siakam just was in Nebhard at the end of the game. We're just getting the matchup against Al that they wanted and just cooking in the mid range. So like if that keeps happening, yeah, I think you got to think about shifting the personnel. It is weird to me. Like I felt like still haven't gone back and looked up the numbers. I've been saying this for like a week now. The Tatum center lineups were good, or even when they threw O'Shea Brissett against it. And remember, O'Shea has a little bit of a history with this team, obviously, having played for the Pacers. I wonder if there's just even small pockets of minutes that you can get, because let's face it, you can't play out 48 minutes. You can't play out probably 38 minutes. You probably should. I mean, they got to drive that number down until Porzingis is back. And so I would hope that they can find some things here. It just might not be a big man series. It might be you have to go small to match that speed. And I know you don't want to cater to them because then that kind of puts they're forcing the issue. But unless you're taking advantage of your size somehow by like dominating the glass or getting good looks because of those screens, like it's just going to have to be a balance. So I think they're alert to it. I think they're going to Joe likes who he likes, and he trusts those guys that he's put out there. I mean, it's given Hauser a long leash despite being kind of rough in the last 2 rounds, and Luke, obviously didn't have a great night the other night, but I think they get first crack tonight. And then, if you feel like you need the audible, maybe we'll see him go and dip into some different lineups.
Should we be worried about the bench superiority Indiana showed in game 1, or is that an aberration?
Yeah, no, I think look, I love Sam. I thought he was great this regular season. He really managed the dips better than he did last year, and it gave confidence he was going to be out there in the postseason. But man, it just feels like he's not in a good headspace right now. And like, look, he's usually very positive. I don't think he ever really like gets down on himself. I just don't see the same player that is confident out there, that is making the right play. He needs to sort of, I don't know if it's just see one fall and maybe that just unlocks him a little bit. Luke has been steady, but this is a tough matchup for him, and they're going to stress him with the way with both their speed and the way they just try to switch everything and cause a little bit of chaos and put big men in a tough position. I don't know what the answer is there, right? Like either Peyton has to be really good and negate the McConnell impact, or the Celtics just have to lean a little bit heavier on that core. And that worries me too. Now they haven't played a ton of games. So, you can say that there's still a lot of gas in that tank, but especially as you start, maybe looking forward a little bit, you just want to make sure that these guys don't get too worn down in the third round, like we've seen in the past. And then you're on empty going into the finals.
And Chris, finally, I heard a narrative yesterday that Indiana was better defensively than they were getting credit for. I want your opinion on that.
A team that routinely gave up like 140 points.
Right, thank you. All right, thanks.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
good. All right, we're on the same page.
You got the answer you wanted.
I'm like, oh my God. I mean, really? Like you saw them once, and now they're like the greatest defensive team ever?
Siakam does help. Like, he's a decent defender, and so I don't know. But there's only so much they can mask. They've got some deficiencies, and that's part of the reason why. Like, if you just play defense on your end to the degree that you're capable of, you should be okay. But you guys hear that they're changing up the jersey tonight, trying to break this game two.
Yeah.
Game 2 curse.
No, what happened?
They're wearing the black uniforms with the green.
Yeah. So essentially, they wore white against Miami, lost. Wore green against Cleveland, lost. So they're not superstitious, but they might be a little stitious.
It's a statement uniform tonight. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, everyone keeps saying maybe just play better, but hey, let's go. Let's try the jerseys first.
Yeah, I mean, you have such a great tradition. What are you doing? All right, Chris Forsberg. People can watch you pre and post tonight. When can people watch you?
Yes, we are everywhere. We have Celtics post up, so 90 minutes of pregame if you so desire.
All right, and that is on NBC Sports Boston. Chris Forsberg, the best in the business. Chris Forsberg, watch him tonight, pre and post NBC Sports Boston.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. For more Celtics analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.